Deep inside a cave on the edge of South Africa's Kalahari Desert, a research team runs a fossilized bone fragment under an infrared microscope. It is smaller than a fingernail, but the burn pattern etched into its surface tells them something extraordinary. This bone was heated by fire more than 1 million years ago, 30 meters back from the cave mouth, far past where lightning, sun, or a wildfire could ever have reached. Something carried that fire in there, and something kept it burning. For most of human history, fire wasn't a luxury or a mood setter. It was the single event that rewired the human body, the human brain, and, as it turns out, the human need to sit in a circle and talk. Removing fire from the timeline doesn't just remove warmth and cooked food, it removes the very conditions that built a brain large enough to ask where fire came from in the first place. The cave is called Wonderwerk, and it has been under excavation for decades. In 2012, Boston University archaeologist Francesco Berna and University of Toronto anthropologist Michael Chazon published findings placing controlled fire use inside the cave at roughly 1 million years ago, in a layer called stratum 10, ash, burned bone, and heat-fractured stone tools, all found together, all deep enough underground that natural fire simply could not explain them. Follow-up work pushed even further, into an older layer called stratum 11, with signs of burning dated to between 1.07 and 1.79 million years ago. The species responsible was likely Homo erectus, and crucially, the researchers are careful to note something counterintuitive. Nothing suggests these early humans could make fire yet. The evidence points to something stranger. They were finding fire in the wild, carrying it inside, and tending it. Fire management before fire making. So what does keeping a flame alive, day after day, actually do to a species over hundreds of thousands of years? According to Harvard biological anthropologist Richard Wrangham, the answer is almost everything. Wrangham's cooking hypothesis argues that somewhere around 1.8 million years ago, a cluster of anatomical changes appears in the fossil record all at once. Smaller teeth, a smaller gut, a larger brain, exactly the signature expected if a population had suddenly gained access to cooked food. Digesting raw meat and fibrous plants is expensive. It demands a long gut and constant chewing. Cooking breaks that food down before it ever reaches the body, freeing up enormous amounts of energy. Anthropologists Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler had already described the underlying trade-off in 1995 with what they called the expensive tissue hypothesis. Brain tissue and gut tissue are both metabolically costly, and a body can't easily afford to expand both. Shrink the gut, and there is suddenly a caloric budget available to grow something else. Wrangham's argument is that cooking is what allowed that shrinkage to happen at all. That the modern human brain is, in a very literal sense, a fire-powered organ. But there's a problem hiding in that theory, one that took another site on another continent to expose. At Gesher Benot Ya'aqov, an ancient lakeside site in northern Israel, Hebrew University archaeologist Naama Goren-Inbar and her team uncovered burned wood, burned seeds, and burned flint fragments dated to nearly 790,000 years ago. What made this site remarkable wasn't just the age, it was the pattern. The burned material clustered in specific, repeated spots across 8 separate occupation layers, meaning the same locations were used as hearths again and again across many generations, at the same lakeside camp. This wasn't a single lucky ember kept alive for a season. This was fire as infrastructure, a fixed point that a group returned to, rebuilt, and organized life around. A home base, centuries before anyone could write the word. And that detail is where the story quietly stops being only about biology. Because a hearth that a group returns to isn't just a stove, it's a location. It's a reason to stay near other people after dark, once hunting and gathering are finished for the day, with light that has nothing left to illuminate except each other's faces. And in 2014, University of Utah anthropologist Polly Wiesner published a study that took this observation seriously enough to actually test it. Wiesner recorded and compared 174 daytime and nighttime conversations among the Juhowansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, a hunter-gatherer population in Botswana and Namibia whose lifestyle offers one of the closest living analogs to how humans spent most of their evolutionary history. The difference between day and night talk was not subtle. Daytime conversation revolved almost entirely around economics and practical gossip. Who owes what, who did what. Resource complaints, minor conflicts. Firelight conversation was almost a different species of talk altogether. Stories, songs, religious accounts, tales about distant relatives, and legendary events. The kind of narrative that requires imagining a person or a place one cannot currently see. So which was it then? Did fire rebuild the body, or did it rebuild the mind? The honest answer, and the twist this whole timeline has been quietly building toward, is that it did both, in sequence, and the second effect may be the one that mattered more. Cooking bought the brain its raw material, extra calories, freed up energy, room to grow. But it was the light itself, stretching the day past sunset into hours with no economic task left to perform, that gave that larger brain something new to practice on: extended, imagination-driven storytelling. Wisner's own analysis frames it directly that firelit hours created social time that didn't compete with the daylight hours needed for survival, and that time became the incubator for the kind of layered, theory of mind heavy communication that gossip and daytime logistics never required. Two archaeologists studying stone tools and one anthropologist studying conversation transcripts, working in three different countries decades apart, all arrived at the same hinge point without meaning to. None of this can be proven with the certainty of a laboratory experiment. Nobody recorded a conversation at Gesher Benot Ya'aqov 790,000 years ago. But the pattern across an unrelated cave in South Africa, an unrelated lakeshore in Israel, and a living population in the Kalahari today lines up too consistently to dismiss as coincidence. The circle around a modern fire pit or a living room lit by nothing but a screen after the sun goes down is doing something that traces back further than agriculture, further than language as it's spoken today, further than almost anything else that gets credited with making humans human. The fire went out sometime after midnight at Gesher Benot Ya'aqov. Someone would have rebuilt it the next evening. They probably didn't know they were also rebuilding something else.